Hi, I'm Ron,
And I'm Don.
and this is the Ron and Don Show. We're very excited today to bring you what we call a subject matter expert. Today's topic is environmental air hazards, and we're pleased to be joined by Bill Rilea, who is a certified and licensed mold and mildew remediation specialist.
Hi guys.
Welcome. Glad you're here today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Bill, I've got a few questions that Don and I set and prepared, and would like to just kind of get some information from you.
Okay.
First off, let's start with a simple question. What is mold, and why should we be concerned about it?
Mold is it's a naturally occurring thing everywhere we go, inside, outside, in buildings, walls, all around us, inside the building, outside the building. And sometimes it's so small you can't see it, and it's there whether we like it or not. It's always going to be around us, and it impacts some people in different ways. It impacts our building materials in different ways, and it can be something that we really need to pay close attention to in our buildings and our everyday work life.
So our viewers are predominantly facility managers in and around restaurants and commercial and institutional kitchens. What do they need to know about mold, and what should they be wary of?
Some of the things we find out there with restaurants and those types of kitchens, and kitchens in particular, there's a bacteria load that naturally occurs in a kitchen. As we're cooking, we're prepping food, we're doing our things, some things hit the floor, some things go in different places. We always try to clean those areas up, but as we proceed to use a kitchen, there's going to be a bacterial load there somewhere. Bacteria is the perfect food for mold. Just about any species out there, it loves bacteria, it thrives on it. A couple other things you'll find that you deal with in a restaurant type facility is just the front door. You're going to have an outside unconditioned space, an inside conditioned space that's nice and comfortable for all those patrons that come into your restaurant. Your temperature may be quite a bit lower than the outside high temperature or low temperature. The humidity inside may be completely different than the outside, and it can create a moisture as you enter in a restaurant that's quite different from the outside, and that will condensate and eventually allow mold to grow. It's going to need a few things. It's going to need the right light, it's going to need a moisture source, and it's going to need a food source. And if it has those three things, it's going to grow whether we really like it or not. The other thing you're going to find is storage areas that are real cold in a restaurant for storing your food and those types of things. You're going to run into the same condensation thing. You're going to find that in your restrooms. People are not always the best of shots in the restrooms. I mean, you're going to find some areas of a bacterial load, things that occur in a bathroom that are going to create the perfect environment for mold to grow. If you don't get in there, clean it on a regular basis, a daily basis, you're going to find that you have it grow there. We're going to need to take care of those things.
So light, moisture, and food is what I heard from that.
That's it really in a nutshell. That's your three things you need to worry about. You control those, you kind of control your rule of your mold law.
Oftentimes I'll see walls that have sheetrock as a foundation for the wall have a lot of black or discoloration to them. What's going on there?
That's interesting. A lot of people freak out and they go, "Oh my God, I'm looking at my drywall. I got black mold," and people go nuts about it. There's been a lot of it in the news, a lot of it in publications and things like that. Mold, if you want to think about it, and the way we go through it with our guys is think about it as being a plant, a rose bush. What you see is that black color on your wall is really think about the beautiful red rose. It smells good, it looks good, it feels good. I mean, it's what you like. It's very attractive. On the mold, on the wall, it's black, it's ooey, it's gooey, it smells bad, it looks bad, it's very scary, and you just don't want it. But what that all is that's the excretion from your plant. Just like the rose bush comes up out of the plant, it makes the rose itself is the beautiful thing. Down in you have the little roots. We have the same thing going on in the wall. You have the ugly, black, ooey, gooey, really bad stuff that could probably harm you in a not so nice way. And then inside the wall, you have the rest of the plant, and then on and on and on, you have the little hyces and the roots that are all there. A lot of people like to come into a building and they just clean off the beautiful rose bush or the ooey gooey stuff, and they make it look good. But guess what? The whole rest of the plant is all still there. A lot of times you have to remove it. So drywall, it's a porous material. It gets mold in it. You're going to probably have to cut it out, do some interior repairs to that wall. Do it the right way. Don't mess with it.
So you can't just wipe that with bleach then?
You can, but it'll be back 10 times worse next week or next month, and it'll be something more difficult to deal with. The proper way to deal with it is to, when in doubt, cut it out.
When in doubt, cut it out.
Like
Okay,
it.
what we're talking about here is mold and, in essence, mold spores. What's the difference?
A lot of people use the terminology mold, mold spores, and basically mold, when most people relate to mold, is it's the big ooey gooey ugly looking stuff on the wall. A mold spore is the actual mold itself trying to protect its little colony. It's like, if you look at, the only way you can see a mold spore is with a microscope. It's very teeny tiny. You can't see it through the naked eye, but that mold spore is the mold itself trying to recolonize itself over here because somebody has disturbed it. Maybe you've walked by it, you've bumped it, you've tried to clean it, something like that. The mold says, hey, wait a second, I'm uncomfortable here. I don't have the right light, I don't have the right food source, something else is changing. I'm going to recolonize over here. And guess what? It's looking for mold. I mean, it's looking for a food source and moisture and stuff like that. And we as humans, we're perfect for mold. It loves us. We don't like it so much.
Where do you see the actions that have to be taken? You have to cut it out and remove it, but don't you have to have specialized protection equipment and all that kind of stuff?
All that stuff would be helpful. A lot of guys will come up to it, chop it out, scatter it all over your restaurant or your building, and then go, yeah, I got it dealt with. Proper technique may be, if you've got more than 10 square foot or whatever you like to use as your protocol, if you've got a more than, a matter of fact, let me tell you this about mold. This is something that you guys need to know. Is you guys could probably see that's about the size of a quarter. When we talk about mold spores, that's the really bad stuff of mold, 1 billion mold spores in something about that size. That's about the size of a quarter, 1 billion mold spores. That's a B, okay? So don't think you can send your new handyman that just walked in, you're paying them 10 bucks an hour, 5 bucks an hour in to clean that up and not destroy the rest of your building at some point in time. Don't do it. It's a big mistake. Any little visible mold you see, take precautions. Use the right techniques to clean it up. If you don't know how to do it, ask somebody that does. Take care of your building. They're expensive.
So we're talking about bringing in professionals when it comes to remediation of mold, and the specific terms I think are used are developing a protocol, and every protocol for every situation is different, and that's why you need an environmental air specialist or an environmental engineer for such a thing. Mold spores, what are the most common mold spores? Are there common mold spores? Are they regional across the U.S.? And which ones are most dangerous and which ones are most frequent?
There's common species of mold. A lot of people say, well, which mold spores? A mold spore is a mold spore is a mold spore is a mold spore. But mold species are all different. There's thousands and thousands. There's over 5,000 of known species of mold in our fungal kingdom. And they do all kinds of wonderful things. Pepperoni is a prime example. Penicillin, there's a prime example. They can do some good with mold. There's also some very bad that can occur with mold. Mold can get into your lungs. It can do all kinds of fun things there. It needs the perfect fit of, again, the light, the moisture, the food source. It needs those things. And then sometimes we find in our mold cleaning the right acid or alkaline, different pHs and things like that it needs to do its thing. The really bad ones everybody calls black mold would be Stachybotrys. That's like the dinosaur of mold. If you go, okay, it's the big T-Rex, if you want to think about it as dinosaurs. Then you have Penicillin or Penicillin aspergillus. It's kind of that's a dangerous thing for a lot of people. A lot of people are allergic to penicillin. A lot of people are allergic to the secretions of that particular mold. Some people like the taste and the flavor of it, believe it or not. It's just kind of a thing. That it can be very dangerous. Another one that we find a lot in water damage is going to be cladosporium. Cladosporium, it loves a very wet little area. We deal with it all the time. It's very hard to get rid of. I mean, and it's there and it's ingrown into things like concrete, where you think, okay, well, drywall is okay. You think that concrete is immune to it. I haven't found a single material that I've ever worked with that's immune to mold growth.
Interesting.
I've watched mold, believe it or not, go through 3 inches of solid lead. I've watched it grow through solid steel. I've watched it grow through concrete. I've watched it just deteriorate drywall, carpeting, windows, go right through the glass of a window or the vinyl of the window, wood of just about any kind, computer parts, electronics. I have not seen a single material that I can say, hey, this is a material that mold will not travel through. Glass, even glass that a lot of the labs use to sample stuff with, and they catch it on little slides and stuff like that. Believe it or not, they have trouble with it actually traveling through those materials at times.
That's interesting. Boy, when I think about the surfaces I naturally would assume to be mold resistant or mold tolerant, and that would be stainless steel, quarry tiles, epoxy floors, FRP perhaps, but you're saying all of those surfaces can support the growth of mold.
They can. Given the right environmental conditions, they absolutely can. Mold is here to digest. I mean, it's like the big waste facility that you see down the road, a big pile over there. Everything they put in there, mold eats that.
Okay.
And it secretes whatever it secretes, and it takes on whatever color. We talk about, again, back to Stachybotrys, black mold. Well, lots of people have seen orange mold, red mold, pink mold. It secretes whatever it secretes, and that's the color of whatever material it's feeding on. So if it decides to come over here and at the Ron and Don show eat one of these beautiful orange chairs, it may be secreting orange. It may be Stachybotrys, Penicillin, some other form, Niagara. There's thousands of different molds. We don't know what it is by what color it is. Everybody, oh, it's black mold, it's red mold, that's very dangerous. It may be perfectly harmless.
I thought I knew something about mold. I didn't know jack about mold. You're helping tremendously.
Lots of people call me Jack. Some people call me Bill, but then they go, I thought I knew Jack, but now I know. So I get that every once in a while.
What's most important is what your wife calls you.
Yeah, anything but late for dinner, please.
What else do our viewers need to know in their position as facilities managers about mold, and what they should do about it?
I would say, try to keep a clean restaurant. Try to keep people not afraid to I let my guys know to get tiny. To make mold spores are tiny, you got to see them with a microscope. And sometimes to track one down, to find it, to see what's going on, you have to make yourself small. You have to put yourself in positions of floating around that you may not normally look around if you're a human and you're walking around looking. We may see the ceiling, we may see the walls. Get your people that inspect your building to think tiny. And sometimes they'll find things that they've normally overlooked. Clean those areas that you don't commonly come in contact with on a day-to-day basis. Don't be afraid to look behind stuff. You may find something that needs to be dealt with. And I think in our industry, that's a big thing, is tracking those things down before they become a big problem. It can make a big difference in your restaurant as opposed to the guy down the street that's having a problem. Don't be afraid to act quickly, and don't be afraid to put a plan in place for when you do find something like this in your beautiful new restaurant, because it's coming to town.
Bill Riley, thank you for joining us today. Very informative. We greatly appreciate your time.
Amen.
Thanks, guys.
I'm Ron.
Appreciate you having me.
And I'm Don.
This is the Ron and Don Show. Thanks for joining us today. Please subscribe.